In part 2, Karen gets real about her inner compass that guides her decisions and how learning assertiveness transformed her ability to lead with love. She'll share ways you can start listening to your own inner wisdom and create a life driven by purpose instead of pressure. Welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm Kendra Nielsen, wife, mom, and licensed therapist. Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right, but you're still exhausted and empty? Did you think life, marriage, and parenting would be simpler and more rewarding? Sometimes you just want to crawl back into bed and lose yourself in screen time and chocolate, rather than face that personal or family stress. You are not alone. This podcast helps you break free of the rat race and build a richer, more meaningful life, flourishing incrementally and realistically, improving your mental health and wellness, and living with deeper purpose beyond the mundane, no matter where you are in life's journey. It's very hard to honor ourselves, and we get stuck. Maybe we haven't had that aha moment like you did. Maybe we don't really know what is okay for how others treat us or how we treat ourselves. And that is so pivotal, so foundational on starting to build up what you want if that is not in place. Do you mind sharing anything else with that aspect that's helped you as you had that epiphany moving on from that?
Yeah, I think I shared this story in my book where I was having a moment. I was in the car and I was feeling really like shame. I was thinking about these ways I failed and the weaknesses I've had and the ways that I wish I'd done things better, and just feeling like this heaviness. And as I'm driving in the car, I had this picture come to my mind. It's like this room and this mural, and it's beautiful, and everybody's working on this mural. And I know I'm supposed to come and work on this mural. I see Jesus, and I'm like, can you do it? Because I'm going to mess it up. He's like, if I wanted a perfect mural, I would just paint it myself. What I want is for you guys to learn to work together, to learn to enjoy and to have fun and get to create this together. I was like, okay, I guess I can try. So I pick up the paintbrush, and I see my daughter, and she's showing me, because she's an artist, so she's showing me how to paint a branch. And then my little boy comes over, and he's, Mom, can I help? There's part of me that was like, oh, I'm going to have to make sure he doesn't make a mess. But then I see his eyes and I'm like, oh, he just wants to be with us. It doesn't have to look just right. It's like this relationship, right? And he starts painting. And when he's not looking at cleaning up some of the smudges, then I notice that Jesus is doing the exact same thing for me. I'm trying to paint and he's cleaning up my smudges. And I realize that's the whole point. That's why he died, so that we could create and figure things out and make mistakes and make a lot of messes, but we would still be able to have joy in creating and being together and building relationships with him. The point is building these relationships, getting to be creative in our own different ways, and finding joy in all of that. I think that's been really helpful for me to understand in honoring myself. That doesn't mean I have to be perfect at it. It just means that I'm getting to create and enjoy the process without thinking it has to look a certain way. Because like I said, life is never going to look, I've never experienced a day that goes exactly according to plan.
I appreciate that story you shared of the smudges that, your child? Was this?
Yeah.
Your child, yeah. And what parent of us isn't like just really cringing, not really wanting them to? I love that you allowed for that, but then turning it into this analogy of Jesus cleaning up our smudges, our messes. It makes me think of that joy in creating, but also this letting go, this acceptance, and letting it play out as it should in this beautiful way, even if it looks messy. Honoring that process, honoring yourself, honoring the journey, and being present along for the ride instead of trying to dictate it and control it and make it perfect, which we all do in our lives. We're so rigid and trying to take the driver's seat. When we take the driver's seat, it's a lot more complicated sometimes, instead of just letting go and allowing ourselves to make a mess and know that it's going to be covered. It's going to be taken care of. I love that story and that visual. Great job of sharing that. Tell us more about the next steps in your journey and how that relates to our topic for today, boundaries. Like maybe boundaries you've had to set with other people or some challenges you've had in setting those boundaries.
Yeah, so the next steps in what we're doing is starting to work with orphanages, right? So I'm going to start taking the program and going out once a week, working with them, bringing them out on the weekends to our ropes course and to do these activities. There's things I have to let go of. We've been doing a lot like English classes and different things in our community, which are good things and not necessarily stopping them, but I don't need to be in charge of them. I have people that can start taking on some of those things. Some of them I do need to let go of because they're good things, but that's not why we went to Mexico, right? Like, there was a reason we sold everything. There was a reason that we made these big sacrifices. It was to help and do this particular work. Even though it doesn't mean we can't pivot and do things, there's still this feeling inside that we're there to serve. Learning that doesn't mean we have to help everyone that we see. So the purpose, why are we here? It was a big shift in my family when I started to be like, okay, I am allowed to take up space. It did make chaos in relationships with my parents, siblings, or in my own family. When those things start to happen and you start to feel a little bit like it's just hard when people are used to you taking on their feelings or things, it makes them feel a little bit abandoned when you're like, I think I'm going to let you take care of that now. And so being willing to let even that go, like other people's approval. I think I tended to live life in a please like me way, looking for approval in other people, to let go of that and to know people are perfectly capable of dealing with things and honoring that, saying, I love you as you are, and we're in this together and we gotta just move forward instead of feeling like I needed to take on stuff that wasn't mine to take.
Karen, I gotta say, this speaks to probably every therapist out there too, because there's a part of us that wants to be a therapist because we like to fix things and we don't want to have others feel abandoned. But not just the therapists of the world, but a lot of people, I'm sure that resonates with them. Like, I'm allowed to take up space. I've heard of it, especially women, men too, but parents, that's foreign to them, that concept, to even say that they feel anxious or tense in their body. They're like, what does that mean? What is the result of that? Who am I going to be leaving behind that needs me? And it's that desire to control, that difficulty letting go. Maybe that underlying belief, please love me, or I'm not enough. We all have these beliefs, but until we address them and work through those, it's very hard to move forward and build what we are meant to build. Letting them deal with their things and honoring that, maybe delegating or just letting them take over so you can take the front seat in the things you were meant to. Beautiful stories. You have such a great way of putting these things and helping us apply these things to ourselves. I just really appreciate it. Can you tell us, you're in the stage right now where you're getting all these things running, you're writing this book, you have 8 kids, there's a lot going on in your life, you're learning a lot about boundaries. You mentioned shame a little bit. Can you tell us more about that and how you were able to let go of shame? Maybe you have a story or example that illustrates that.
It came actually when I was doing some meditating. I was like laying down and I was thinking about, I had this picture come to my mind to practice a little bit of internal family systems. So you're starting to come inside and you're like, okay, who's there? I had this picture come to my mind of a baby polar bear trying to climb this pole. She'd get to the top and there's a parent polar bear. She'd get pushed off, fall to the snow, and climb the pole again and get pushed off. And I was like, what does this mean? And I had this memory come back to me of when I started doubting some of the teachings I had in my childhood, like 9. And I went to them and I was like, I'm not sure. I don't want to be brainwashed. I'm curious about this. And my mom's response was, can you not? You're going to be a bad example to your brothers. And I don't want them to start having doubts because of the way you're speaking. So I think she wasn't quite secure at that time in her own beliefs either. It was almost a fear response for her. And that came to my mind when I was thinking about these things. I noticed this girl in the corner and she looked ashamed and had hair over her face. And I went over to her and I was like, I know you've been trying your best and it's okay. Like, you don't have to be ashamed. And it took me some almost to help her believe me. And it was me really, just as a younger version. And then she eventually, through this talking, showing love and care, she comes out and I take her hair, move it from her face and give her a hug. And then I present her to Jesus. He smiles at her and she's twirling and then she's got flowers in her hair. This whole thing is happening within me as I'm picturing all of this. And then I see the baby polar bear again coming up. I think it's a representation of, I just want approval. And this eagle comes up as she's falling and takes her on this healing of, I've got you. You don't need other people's approval. You can fly on your own. I think the shame often comes from our own personal judgment of ourselves and not wanting to accept and love ourselves, understanding that all of us basically are doing the best we can with what we currently know. We know very little. People will say, what would Jesus do? We have no idea. He's perfect. He knows all. All we can do is like our next little baby best guess forward, right? This is my best guess. And of course, that's honored because, and what just God would say, that's not good enough. Our next best step forward is going to be what's right for us. And it's going to take us to the next lesson we need in our life. The next thing we need to learn, which is what's important. It doesn't necessarily mean the next perfect thing that has to happen. So I take this step and I learn something and then I can pivot, right? Shame often comes from this feeling of, shoot, I didn't do it right. And now I've messed up my life. Instead of thinking, okay, that was my next baby step. What did I learn from it? How do I move forward from there? Because that is our right path. As long as we keep trying and doing the best we can with what we currently know, we haven't up. We've been on the path that's taking us to what we now know so we can move forward in a better way than before.
Absolutely. That shame for you was really about personal judgment, but instead learning and pivoting, like baby steps, recognizing that we haven't messed up. Like we didn't know what we didn't know. And so that's okay. That's part of learning. That's part of growing. If we saw this grade school age child, we wouldn't be yelling at them because they messed up. Or if a child is learning to walk, of course, you're learning. That's part of the process. That is your path. We were made to stumble and figure things out along the way. It doesn't mean that we did it wrong and we are to blame and there should be shame on us, but instead recognizing that's part of the journey. And it is hard to remember that as parents. And I'm curious, Karen, how you have been able to teach your kids this. Maybe it's through sharing verbally, maybe it's through example. You talk about this in assertiveness and boundaries. If I were to have your kids in here, what would they say about it? What have they learned through your example?
It's interesting because since I have such a wide age range, I parented my first a little bit different. I made a lot of calls to my oldest daughters. I see now that I probably shouldn't have said that. I know when they were younger and someone needed something, whatever, I'm like, you should share. Give them your stuff. Instead of saying, it's okay for you to want something. Instead of just assuming that you should do it. Having a place of choice and giving them the space to make those choices. I've had a lot of understanding that I share with them now as they're older. One of the things we do, for instance, in the mornings, I'll ask them, what are some of the things that you learned from your personal studies? And then I'll share what I've been learning. I read this particular thing in my scriptures and it helped me realize it's okay to fight for our personal space as I'm picking up on it. I would say that's one way. And then I had this epiphany where I was trying to decide there's this conflict in family, right? And it hit me like the most important thing for me to model for my children is wholeness, not trying to accommodate myself to make sure everybody else is okay, but for them to see a parent working towards wholeness, that is more important than keeping the peace with everybody else. When I understood that, I felt more able to take up space again, making choices that take me towards wholeness instead of managing everything else. So I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. But.
Yeah, it definitely does. That wholeness, exemplify that over keeping the peace. And that also goes along with that people pleasing or being small or meeting everybody else's needs instead of your own. It reminds me of the story you shared of seeing yourself as Jesus did with that flowing white dress and crown. When we shift that perspective and recognize that we do matter, but we're not moving into toxic empathy. When we see ourselves in that light, we can unapologetically start to stand up for ourselves, advocate for ourselves and for others with that balance. I appreciate the different ways you've shared that today, how you've been able to lean into that. And even with your kids, course correcting, repairing when maybe, okay, my older kids, I didn't get it right. I'm definitely doing that right now. Sometimes the younger ones either. But again, with another story of yours, some people have different belief systems, but whether it's Jesus or another, he can take care of those mistakes that we don't have to carry. We can let go of things, have more acceptance, and recognize that's part of the journey, part of the process is being messy, letting go of control. So really appreciate all the stories, visuals, examples that you shared today. Is there any final thing you'd like to share with us about boundaries or assertiveness or anything we didn't quite get to before we end today?
There's a lot. Like I said, I have ADHD, so I need to have like newness or something that will keep me moving forward with it. I wrote a little story and a journaling prompt, and you start to build little systems. It's a way to gently come into yourself. The first version I wrote before I went to Mexico was more about learning to hear that voice and act on it. This time when I got back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to completely rewrite this because now I see that huge element of learning to heal so that you're not building on faulty beliefs and just doing more, but learning to like really go in and what is it that is blocking me? What is it that's keeping me in this pattern? And you come inside and you learn to heal some of those things so you can make space for the actions that are next. Now have it where it's just gentle systems and little stories and journaling prompts that allow you to start to go more inward and build from rest and wholeness instead of just doing more, staying more productive, getting more distracted, and learning how to gently put in those boundaries from a place of wholeness. So that's where I started to try to put it in a build-up way instead of just flooding with all of these thoughts on baby steps. And I wrote it really for my kids, the kids I want to serve in Mexico, and then for all of those who are also in this place where I still am, trying to figure out what's my next step, like where do I go next, what's my purpose, and what's the next place I need to go now that I understand what I know. What's the next thing to heal? I think healing is just a lifelong journey, right? We're always going to be healing and growing and learning and moving forward, but like how do you do that in a daily way?
So it's about healing really and checking in with yourself, like this honest inventory of what am I blocking? What patterns am I repeating generationally or otherwise? And focusing on that wholeness with those rests, those boundaries, not just pure productivity, but really stepping back and looking at the big picture. Another thing that I think almost all of us can relate to. We also need to send listeners to read your book. Where can they find your book?
It's on Amazon, and so you can find it there. You can get it on my website in English or Spanish. My website is KarenTavaresBates.com. If you want to be involved in our nonprofit work, our nonprofit website is findyourpathmission.org. That'll follow our story. We have service trips, internships, and different projects you can be involved in.
That sounds incredible. We'll put all of that in the show notes so they can check that out, spread the word, and check out your book. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing so many beautiful things that I know I want to remember. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me, Kendra. I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing. It's so important.
We're so grateful you tuned in to this incredible conversation with Karen Bates. If you're craving more conversations like this one, sign up for our weekly emails at fulfillmenttherapy.org to get insights, resources, and inspiration delivered straight to your inbox each week. We also have all this information in the show notes and on our blog that goes even deeper into this topic, and you can check that out on our website as well. We'll see you back here next Monday for more episodes. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this episode, a quick 30-second share can help someone else find support and help this podcast grow. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts boosts visibility and keeps the show alive. Your simple acts make a big difference. I'll see you back here each week for more life-changing episodes.